All right. Hey, class. Welcome to your first lesson of testing week number 2. We are going to go right into it by going into our I-can statement. I can compare and contrast two stories. These two words should sound very similar. These are verbs. These are things we're going to do. Compare means to find out how things are the same. We've compared before, and we use this motion when we're talking about comparing by taking our hands, putting them up on the same side, because when we compare, we're finding out things are the same. So that's why I'm making my hands look the same. So we're comparing, and we're also going to contrast. Compare and contrast are two very different things. Compare, how we find out they're the same, and contrast is how we learn or finding out how things are different. So now when I'm talking about contrasting, I have one hand with the back facing this way and one hand facing this way, showing that they're different. Compare how they're the same, contrast how they're different. We're going to be able to do that with two stories that we have already read. How convenient. So the two stories that we are going to compare, find out how they're similar, and contrast are Bunny Jarl and Warrenuna, or the lazy people and the hard workers. And we're also going to talk about to compare and contrast the ants and the grasshopper. Again, lazy people and hard workers. Oh, wait, is that a similarity? We're going to talk through these two questions. How are these stories similar? What do they have that is the same? We're also going to talk through the question of how are they different? Though they're very similar, they're alike in a lot of ways. There are things that are different in each story, and we're going to talk through a few of those, and then I'm going to let you think through a few of those too. So comparing, contrasting, here's a nice poster that we can look at in an easy way to understand how to compare and contrast two things. I'm reading right here. When you compare and contrast, you think about what's the same and what is different. Y'all know I love cats, right? But I also love dogs. So I drew a little Venn diagram showing how cats are the same and how they are different. This is called a Venn diagram. Can you say Venn diagram? Venn diagram, that is two circles that overlap here in the middle. As you keep working hard to graduate high school, you're going to be seeing this Venn diagram in every grade you go from here on out, because it is a very popular way of comparing and contrasting two things. So on this circle that I have here, I've labeled cats. Everything in this circle describes a cat. This circle, I've labeled dogs. Everything in this circle describes dogs. But you notice, what do my two circles do? They go together or they intersect. They overlap each other right there in the middle. That's a special part of our Venn diagram. In the middle of our Venn diagram, where cats and dogs come together, we have ways that cats and dogs are similar or ways that they are the same. So in this little place where they intersect are ways that dogs and cats are the same. Listen as I read them. Both dogs and cats are a type of pet. That's how they're the same. Both dogs and cats have fur. How they're the same. So I only have two reasons how dogs and cats are the same or similar. Now on the outside of the circle, so on the side with the cat, are ways that cats are different. Ooh, sorry about that. Tracking here. How are cats different? Cats meow. Dogs don't meow. Cats chase mice. Cats love to sleep. My cat sleeps all day long. Cats also lick themselves clean. They don't need a bath because they clean themselves. Now on this circle is the way that dogs are different. How are dogs different? Dogs don't meow. They bark. They chase cats. They love to play more than sleep. And they need to be given a bath to get clean. They can't just lick themselves clean. They have to give a bath. But before we can compare and contrast these two stories, now that you know what compare and contrast means, we need to review the stories that we're going to compare and contrast. So let's do a quick review and a retell of the ant and the grasshopper. if you have your reading book, turn to page 61. We have already written out the story elements. You should have already written out the story elements, describing what happens in the story. So now I'm going to practice retelling. I want you to follow along in your book. Pause it if you need to. Pause this video to get to page 61, then come back and join us. But we're going to hop right to it. Use your finger. Follow along with me on your screen. If you do not have it in your book, I'm going to go through beginning, middle, end, and central message to retell the ant and the grasshopper. In the beginning, the setting was outside in autumn winter time. There were ants and one grasshopper. The problem was that the grasshopper didn't collect food for the winter, but the ants, they did. And the grasshopper, how he tried to fix his problem, how he responded was he asked the ants for help. Can I please have some food? But the ants didn't want to help him. They worked hard. He didn't. So the grasshopper stayed hungry. The message or the lesson of the story is that there's time for work and time for play. And the grasshopper did nothing but play, and so he starved. What a sad, sad story, right? But that was us retelling it to remember what happened in the end of the grasshopper. Now, take your book, turn to page 64. There you should have filled out a story element chart about the story Bunny Yarl and Warrenuna. Yes, the crazy titled story, Bunny Yarl and Warrenuna. How are they? What happened in that story? Take your finger, tracking with me either in your book or on the screen. We're going to retell the story starting with the beginning. In the beginning, it was about fall or winter time. There were a group of hard workers and a group of lazy people. Well, the lazy people only wanted to play. They didn't want to help collect food. The hard workers collected the food and they wanted the lazy people to help them. The hard workers got upset and their response to that problem was they moved away. They weren't taking care of those lazy people anymore. Because of that, the lazy people have no food and they turn into flies. Ooh. And the hard workers move away. They want to take care of themselves. They become busy bees. The message or the lesson in this story is it is better to work hard to help others than to just play all day like those lazy people. It's so much better to work hard and help other people. Wow, now that I've retold those two stories, they do sound very similar, don't they? They do almost the same story, but there are some differences. And that's what we're going to work on when we compare and contrast. Let's review one more time with a different visual what compare and contrast means. When you compare two things, you're telling how they're the same. My hands are going in the same direction. When you contrast two things, you're telling, how they're different. My hands are going in different directions. Here is a Venn diagram. In the middle where they intersect, we tell how they're the same. And on the outside, we tell how they're different. Some ways that we can express that in complete sentences to talk about how things are the same, we can use words like same, alike, like. When we're talking about how things are different, we can use the word different or unlike, or the word however, when we explain how things are different. These two stories are different. So let's take a look at your assignment for today. So you should have already done your do now, and this here is your glass cake assignment. This is your Venn diagram where you're going to compare and contrast the two stories. For your title, I want you, or I'm going to go ahead and type this in for us. I'm going to label, instead of a title, I'm going to label each side for the story I'm going to write on. Because remember, just like dogs and cats, each circle had a label. One side was cats, one side was dogs. And in the middle is where we have both. So I'm going to label this side Bunny Yarl and Warrenuna, crazy word. And then this side is the ant and the grasshopper. The ants and the grasshopper. Tomorrow we're going to read the ant and the grasshopper. The ant and the grasshopper. So on this side, we're going to type or write ways that Bunny or Morninuna is different. On this side, we're going to write how the ant and the grasshopper is different. But then don't forget where the two circles come together, we're going to put how they are both similar to each other, right? How they are similar to each other. Now, if you listen to this video and you get to your work and you're like, oh my goodness, I can't remember, sorry, I can't even remember these stories. Scroll down. I have both of the stories down here, as well as our story element chart for both of them, if that makes it easier for you. So let's go ahead and think, how are they similar? How are they similar? Because remember, we write our similarities in here. I'm going to scroll down to the story element chart. Oh, wait, all of it very quickly. I see that both of them are set in the fall and winter. They have the same setting. I'm going to scroll up to my Venn diagram and put that in the middle. So I'm going to make my text teeny tiny so I can fit all that I can in there. And I'm going to change the color of it too. How are they similar? They both are set in fall and winter. Both of them are. I saw that in my story element chart. I put it there because that's how they're the same. Let's scroll down and see if we can find how they're different. Well, one story has grasshoppers and ants, while the other just has people as characters until they turn into the bees and the flies. We're going to say for now that they are people as characters. So looking at the ants and the grasshopper, how are they different? The characters in ants and the grasshopper are, they have ants and grasshoppers. Where Bunny or Morninuna doesn't have ants and grasshoppers, they have people as characters. That's all I'm going to do. And I'm going to let you keep these answers on there. I want you to add on to my Venn diagram. How are these two stories the same? How are they different than each other? Remember, scroll down to find the stories if you forgot them. And then you have an exit ticket. You have some questions about the stories. Number 1 says, how are the two stories similar? Choose all that apply. That means more than one answer. Number 2 says, in the ant and the grasshopper, what happened after the grasshopper asked for food? Again, if you forget, go back to slide 2. Look at those stories. Read them again. Always, always, always go back to the text, just like you should be doing on your test. Good job. Do your best at the end. If you have extra time, I want you to log on to Lexia for 20 minutes. Good job. Bye.